The rain had started before dawn. I hadn't noticed it until I heard the faint tapping on my window, soft and steady like a heartbeat I forgot I had. I lay still, eyes open, watching shadows drift across the ceiling. The world outside was waking up, but I was still somewhere between a dream and a prayer left unanswered. Some mornings, the silence feels like peace, but today it felt like absence, like God had taken a step back and forgot to return. I whispered his name once, then again, but my words dissolved into the air like breath on glass. No answer, not even an echo. I used to think prayer was like a letter you send sealed with hope, delivered with trust. But today, it felt like dropping notes into a well and hearing only your own voice return. I opened my journal. The blank page waited like an open field. I hesitated. What do you write when your soul is dry? I remembered Psalm 13. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? My fingers trembled. That verse had always felt too bolden till now. I looked around my room. Nothing had changed, but everything inside me had missed the warmth I used to feel when I spoke his name. I made tea, not because I was thirsty, but because routine can be a kind of prayer too. I sipped slowly, letting the heat fill the spaces in me that faith no longer reached. Outside, the world hurried by in soaked shoes and umbrellas. Inside I moved, slower like a ghost, inside a life still happening. The noise of traffic echoed faintly, but all I really heard was the silence inside me, stretching like a hallway with no doors. I touched the cross hanging from the nail above my desk, not out of devotion, out of habit, but even habits carry longing. I closed my eyes and remembered being a child again, kneeling beside my mother as she prayed softly in the candlelight. I used to think she had a secret line to God. Maybe she still does. Maybe I lost mine somewhere along the way. Back then, faith was simple, warm. It smelled like jasmine tea and incense. Now, it feels like static in an empty room. I whispered, "Are you still there?" The words barely made it past my lips. They felt too fragile to carry upward. I didn't expect an answer. I only hoped for something to soften the stillness, even a flicker. I sat down again, opened my journal, and started to write. Not theology, just truth. Raw, messy, unfiltered truth. "I don't feel you right now," I wrote, "but I'm still here, still writing, still hoping." It wasn't poetry, but it was real. Sometimes faith is just showing up with an honest heart. Her words echoed now, louder than any sermon. I closed my eyes and breathed, not because I had answers, but because something in me still wanted to try. I reached for the Bible. I hadn't opened it in weeks, but today I needed something to anchor me. It opened to Matthew 6. "Do not worry about tomorrow." I smiled, not because it fixed everything, but because it found me. The rain began to slow. Drops became drizzles, and then a pause. Stillness again, but this time it didn't feel empty. Outside, a bird hopped onto the railing. It shook its wings, looked around, then flew away, unbothered, unworried. I watched it disappear into the sky, and for the first time all morning, I felt lighter. Maybe the miracle isn't in being answered. Maybe it's in being willing to ask again tomorrow. I opened the window a crack. Cool air slid in, brushing my face like a quiet blessing. Somewhere below, a child laughed. Just one note. Pure, undeniable. I hadn't heard laughter like that in a long time. I smiled without meaning to. My heart felt less tight. Just for a second. I wrote again, I'm still here, still reaching, still yours, even in the quiet. I traced the words with my finger. They didn't solve anything, but they rooted me. Faith, I realized, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper that chooses not to leave. I thought of the mustard seed, the tiniest thing, but it becomes shelter. Maybe what I feel now is enough. Maybe longing is holy too. I lit a candle not to chase darkness, but to keep company with it. Light doesn't always conquer. Sometimes it just sits beside you so you're not alone. I wrote a final line. Thank you for staying, if not in word, then in breath. Then I closed the book not in defeat, but in reverence. The rain had stopped, and with it, the hum in my chest quieted too. I stood at the window, watching clouds drift apart. A single ray of sun pierced through. I let the warmth touch my face. Maybe it was sunlight. Maybe it was something more. I whispered, Amen. Not as a finish, but as a beginning. The city outside kept moving, but so did my heart, just a little. And that was enough for today. I didn't hear God's voice, but I saw signs of life again. And maybe that's how He speaks sometimes. Tomorrow, I'll write again, not because I must, but because something sacred lives in trying. This was journal entry number 2. A page written in doubt, softened by grace. The journey isn't over, but I'm still here.